You ever notice how quiet the world gets when you're truly alone? No voices, no footsteps, no phone buzzing with messages, just you and the sound of your own breathing. Some people hear that silence and panic. They think, I'm alone, that must mean I'm forgotten, unwanted, weak. But what if that silence isn't your enemy? What if it's the most powerful place you could ever stand? Because here's the truth no one tells you. The most unbreakable people you'll ever meet weren't made in crowds. They were shaped in the moments when they had no one to call, no one to lean on, and no one to save them. They didn't just survive the silence, they mastered it. They learned how to walk into an empty room and still feel unstoppable. You see, the world teaches you to measure your worth by who stands beside you, by who claps for you, by how many people like you. But life doesn't care about your likes, your followers, or your fan base. Life will strip all of that away and ask you one question. When it's just you, are you enough? Some people crumble under that question, but a rare few, they rise. They look at the emptiness and say, this is my training ground. This is where I become someone no one can break. And if you're listening to this right now, maybe you're in that place. Maybe you've been feeling like you're walking this road alone, like no one sees your struggle, like no one understands the weight you're carrying. I'm here to tell you that's not the end of you. That's the making of you. What's coming next isn't a pity story, it's a transformation. And by the time we're done here, you won't just accept being alone, you'll embrace it as your greatest advantage. Because there's a difference between being alone and being alone but unbreakable. Most people run from being alone because they've been taught to fear it. They think that if no one is around, something must be wrong with them. They take solitude as proof of rejection, a sign they don't belong. But here's what they don't understand. Solitude isn't punishment, it's a forge. It's the place where life strips you down to your core and begins to build you into something stronger, sharper, and more resilient than you ever thought possible. When you are alone, there are no distractions to hide behind. You can't drown your thoughts in someone else's noise. You can't camouflage your insecurities in the presence of a crowd. It's just you, face to face with your truth. And that truth can be uncomfortable. It can show you weaknesses you've been avoiding for years. It can pull your flaws into the spotlight, force you to confront the lies you've told yourself, and reveal the cracks in the walls you've built to protect your ego. Most people can't handle that level of honesty, so they run. They fill every second with noise, with people, with anything that keeps them from having to sit still and listen to themselves. But here's the difference between the fragile and the unbreakable. The fragile escape solitude, the unbreakable embrace it, because they understand something most people will never grasp. You can't truly know your own strength until you've had to stand on it without help. When you're alone, you learn the weight of your own backbone. You learn how much pressure you can take before you bend, and how far you can bend before you break. And once you know that, no one else's opinion can define you. Think of solitude like a blacksmith's fire. The metal doesn't choose to be thrown into the flames, but that's where it becomes something more. The heat removes impurities, the hammer shapes it, and the end result is a blade, sharp, strong, and unyielding. That's what being alone does for you if you let it. The heat is the discomfort. The hammer is the struggle, and you are the raw material being forged into something powerful. This is why some of the greatest transformations in human history happened in moments of isolation. Leaders, warriors, inventors, artists, they all had seasons where they were cut off from the world, forced to dig deep into their own minds and hearts to find answers. They didn't have a crowd cheering them on. They didn't have constant affirmation. They had themselves, their thoughts, their vision, and the will to keep going when no one else was there to encourage them. And that's the secret. Solitude teaches you to stop waiting for someone to push you. It forces you to become your own motivator. When no one is watching and no one is clapping and no one is telling you what to do, you either quit or you build. You either let the silence suffocate you or you learn to breathe in it. You either waste the time wishing for company or you use the time to sharpen yourself for the battles ahead. But make no mistake, solitude isn't comfortable at first. It's not meant to be. Growth is never comfortable. You might feel restless. You might feel the temptation to reach for something, anything to fill the quiet. But if you can resist that urge, if you can lean into the stillness instead of running from it, you'll find something most people never will. Clarity. Without the constant noise of other people's opinions, without the background static of the world's expectations, you start to hear your own voice clearly. You start to see your goals without distortion. You start to separate what's truly yours from what was just handed to you by the crowd. And here's where the real magic happens. When you stop fearing solitude, you stop needing validation. You no longer measure your worth by how many people stand beside you. You stop living for the approval of the room. Instead, you start building from the inside out. Your confidence becomes rooted in who you are, not who people think you are. That's the kind of confidence no one can take from you, because it wasn't given to you in the first place. You forged it yourself. Being alone also gives you the rare chance to rebuild without interference. When you're constantly surrounded by people, their doubts, their fears, their limitations, they can seep into your mind without you even realizing it. But when you're alone, you can shut all that out. You can focus on your own blueprint, your own plans, your own vision. You can train without distraction, work without interruption, and think without distortion. That's how you gain an edge over the ones who can't be alone, because while they need the world to hold their hand, you've been training to stand on your own. So if you're in a season right now where it feels like you're walking alone, don't despise it. Don't waste it wishing it away. Use it, because this season is your forge. This is where you're being prepared for the life you've been asking for. It's where your character is being tempered, your focus sharpened, and your strength tested. And when you step out of this season, people will wonder how you became so resilient, so steady, so unshakable. They'll assume it happened overnight. They won't know about the hours you spent in silence, the nights you stood face to face with your fears, the days you carried your own weight when no one else would help. That's the beauty of the forge. The process is private, but the results are public. The world will see the strength, but only you will know the fire that made it. There's a dangerous trap most people fall into without even realizing it. They build their sense of worth on other people's reactions. They live for the nod of approval, the pat on the back, the likes and comments that confirm they're doing something right. And while that can feel good in the moment, it's like building your house on sand. The second that approval is gone, your entire sense of self collapses. You start to wonder if you're still enough without the applause. You start questioning every move you make because no one is telling you it's the right one. That's when people lose themselves, not because they're weak, but because they never learned to stand without a crowd holding them up. Building inner fortitude means creating a foundation so solid that it doesn't matter who's cheering or who's silent. It means waking up every day and choosing to validate yourself before the world gets a chance to decide if you're worthy. It's about becoming your own authority, your own coach, your own biggest supporter. Because if the only time you believe in yourself is when someone else tells you to, you're not in control of your life. They are. The problem with chasing external validation is that it's never consistent. People are unpredictable. Today they love you, tomorrow they criticize you, and the day after that, they forget you exist. If you're riding that roller coaster, you'll spend your entire life dizzy and disoriented. One day you'll feel unstoppable. The next you'll feel worthless, and the only thing that's changed is the crowd's mood. But when you build your fortitude from the inside out, you break free from that cycle. You stop living like a weather vane, spinning in whatever direction the wind of public opinion blows. Instead, you become like a mountain, unmoved, unshaken, steady, regardless of the climate around you. People can come and go, praise or criticize, and you'll still be standing because you've learned to trust your own compass. The shift starts with one powerful decision. Stop asking for permission to be great. Stop waiting for someone to say, yes, you can do this. You already can. You already have everything you need inside you to take the next step. The question isn't whether you're capable, it's whether you're willing to move without the comfort of someone else's confirmation. This is where many people hesitate. They've been conditioned since childhood to seek gold stars, to look for the teacher's nod, the coach's approval, the parent's praise. They learn to perform for an audience, not for themselves. And that conditioning runs deep. But the reality is, the most meaningful victories in life happen with no one watching. No cameras, no trophies, no applause. Just you pushing yourself to a limit you didn't think you could reach, and then breaking past it. That's the moment where real self-belief is born. You have to train yourself to recognize your own progress and celebrate it without waiting for someone else to notice. You ran further today than you did last week. That's a win. You stood up for yourself when you would have stayed silent before. That's a win. You kept going on a day when everything in you wanted to quit. That's a win. When you acknowledge your own wins, you're feeding your own spirit instead of relying on the scraps of other people's attention. Another thing about external validation, it can be manipulated. People can use it to control you. They can give it to you when it benefits them and withhold it when they want to keep you in line. If you depend on it, you're vulnerable to being swayed, pressured, or guilt-tripped into living someone else's life instead of your own. But when your validation comes from within, you become untouchable in the best way. People can try to sway you, but your anchor is too deep. You've trained yourself to move based on your values, your goals, your vision, not on the approval of the moment. You also have to understand that the path to anything great is often lonely at first. When you start something new, when you break away from the crowd, when you set a higher standard for yourself, don't expect a parade. Most people won't understand. Some will doubt you. Some will even discourage you. Not because you're doing the wrong thing, but because your growth challenges their comfort zone. If you're building your confidence on their approval, that's the point where you'll quit. But if your confidence comes from within, you'll keep going because you're not looking for their permission. You're looking at your purpose. Think about some of the strongest people you've ever heard of. Many of them started in complete obscurity. No one was handing them a microphone or a spotlight. No one was telling them they were destined for greatness. They just kept showing up for themselves day after day because they believed in what they were building. That's the difference. They weren't waiting for the world to crown them before they acted like kings and queens. They carried themselves with strength long before anyone recognized it. The more you build that inner validation, the more fearless you become. You start to take risks, not because someone guarantees success, but because you trust yourself to handle whatever happens. You stop fearing rejection because you no longer see it as a reflection of your worth. It's just information. You stop craving the spotlight because you realize the real work, the work that matters, doesn't need an audience to be powerful. At some point, you have to decide, is your confidence going to be rented from the opinions of others, or is it going to be owned outright by you? Rented confidence disappears when the landlord of public opinion changes their mind. Owned confidence stays because it's been paid for in self-discipline and resilience in showing up for yourself when no one else does. And here's the best part, when you no longer need external validation, the approval you do get becomes a bonus, not a lifeline. You can appreciate praise without depending on it. You can accept criticism without crumbling under it. You can stand in a room full of people who doubt you and still feel like the strongest person there. That's what building inner fortitude is all about. It's not arrogance. It's not pretending you don't care what anyone thinks. It's knowing deep in your core that your worth isn't up for a vote. It's the quiet, unshakable confidence that says, whether you clap or not, I'm still moving forward. And when you reach that point, you're not just hard to break, you're impossible to stop. When the noise fades and the people leave, the hardest battle you'll fight isn't with the world. It's with your own mind. Silence has a way of pulling your emotions to the surface. Fear creeps in. Doubt whispers. Sadness settles in your chest like a weight you can't shake. And if you let those emotions run wild, they'll drag you into places darker than any outside enemy ever could. That's why mastering emotional control is non-negotiable. It's not about pretending you don't feel anything. It's about learning to feel everything without letting it dictate your every move. Emotions are powerful, but power without control is destruction. Think of fire contained. It can warm a home, cook a meal, light the way. Uncontrolled, it burns everything in its path, including you. When the world feels empty, your mind can become a breeding ground for every worst-case scenario you've ever imagined. Loneliness will start telling you that you're forgotten. Fear will start telling you that you're not enough. Anger will whisper that it's all unfair. These emotions can be convincing, especially when there's no one around to counter them. But that's when you have to become your own anchor. You have to learn to challenge the voice in your head before it turns into a storm. You can't navigate. This is where discipline comes in. Not the kind of discipline that's about forcing yourself to work hard. The discipline of staying calm when everything in you wants to explode. the discipline of pausing before you react, even when you feel provoked, the discipline of stepping back from a situation long enough to see it for what it is, not what your emotions are making it out to be. It starts with awareness. Most people are controlled by emotions. They don't even recognize in the moment. They react out of habit. Someone says something, and without thinking, they lash out, shut down, or spiral. But when you start paying attention to your emotional patterns, you begin to notice the triggers. You notice how certain situations always seem to bring up the same feelings. That awareness gives you a window, a split second where you can choose your response instead of letting the emotion choose it for you. And let's be real, this isn't easy, especially when you're alone. In the presence of others, you might keep your emotions in check because you don't want to appear out of control. But when it's just you, that's when the mask comes off. That's when you have to decide who you are without the performance, without the audience. If you can learn to master your emotions in those private moments, you'll be untouchable in public ones. One of the most powerful things you can do when emotions start to spiral is to step into the role of the observer. Imagine you're sitting in a theater, and your mind is the stage. The fear, the sadness, the anger, they're all actors playing their part. But you're not them. You're the one watching. You can acknowledge their presence without letting them take over the entire production. You can say, I see you, but you're not in control here. That separation between what you feel and who you are is where true emotional mastery begins. Another key is reframing. Just because you feel something doesn't mean it's a sign of weakness. Emotions are signals. They're telling you something about yourself or your situation. Loneliness can push you to strengthen your connection with yourself. Fear can alert you to areas where you need more preparation. Anger can highlight where your boundaries have been crossed. Instead of letting these emotions dominate you, you can turn them into tools. You also have to build habits that regulate your emotions before they ever spiral. Physical activity, meditation, journaling, deep breathing. These aren't just cliches, they're proven ways to reset your mind and body. When you have systems in place to process your feelings, you're less likely to be blindsided by them when life gets quiet and heavy. And here's something people don't talk about enough. Emotional control is not about suppression. Suppression is stuffing everything down until it explodes. Control is understanding, processing, and directing your emotions towards something constructive. It's the difference between a dam holding back water until it bursts and a river that flows steadily, strong and purposeful. When you master your emotions, you stop being a prisoner of your circumstances. You could be surrounded by chaos and yet remain steady. You could face betrayal, loss, or disappointment and still move forward with clarity. People will look at you and wonder how you're not falling apart, but they won't see the countless times you've had private conversations with yourself, calming your own storm, choosing not to let a moment's feeling dictate a lifetime's decision. And the truth is, emotional control makes you dangerous in the best way, because most people can be baited. They can be provoked, they can be manipulated simply by triggering an emotion. But when you've trained yourself to remain calm, to think even when you're hurt, to act even when you're afraid, no one can play you. You become a steady force in a world that thrives on instability. When the world feels empty and your emotions try to convince you that you're weak, remember this: control is strength, not the kind of strength that shouts or postures, but the kind that doesn't need to prove itself, the kind that stands in the middle of a storm, feeling the wind and the rain, and still says, I am in command of me. That's the kind of strength no one can break. So the next time the quiet closes in and your emotions start to rise, don't run from them, don't drown in them. Meet them head on, listen to them, learn from them, and then decide how you're going to act. Not based on the moment, but based on the person you've chosen to become. That's the difference between those who are broken by solitude and those who walk through it unshaken. Most people see isolation as a sentence. They think being cut off means they've been abandoned, punished, or forgotten. They waste their time in it, complaining, sulking, or wishing for someone to come rescue them. But the rare ones, the dangerous ones, see isolation for what it really is: an opportunity, a gift, a hidden training ground where they can transform without interruption. They don't just endure isolation, they weaponize it. When you're isolated, you're free from the constant pull of other people's expectations. No one's telling you how to think, what to do, or who to be. You're not stuck in the noise of groupthink. That's the space where you can finally hear your own voice clearly, and that's when you can start building something no one else can see yet. The world is obsessed with being seen, with being noticed every step of the way. People document every minor achievement for applause before it's even fully formed. But here's the truth. The most dangerous moves are the ones made in silence. The most powerful transformations happen when no one is watching. Isolation gives you that power. While everyone else is performing for approval, you're sharpening your skills in the dark, preparing to show up in a way that leaves no doubt about who you've become. History is full of people who used isolation to their advantage. Athletes who trained alone long before the crowd chanted their names. Leaders who studied in obscurity before they commanded nations. Creators who worked in silence until their vision was undeniable. They understood that isolation is not the absence of progress, it's the environment where the deepest progress is made. But here's the catch. Isolation only becomes a weapon if you use it intentionally. Wasting it scrolling through distractions or drowning in self-pity robs you of the advantage it offers. You have to treat it like a training camp. Every day is a chance to sharpen your mind, strengthen your body, refine your craft. No one's going to check in on you. No one's going to hold you accountable. That's the test. Can you push yourself without an audience? Can you stay disciplined without applause? When you approach isolation this way, it stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling like freedom. You can work at your own pace without being compared to anyone else. You can experiment, fail, adjust, and try again without the weight of judgment. That's when you take risks you never dare in front of a crowd. You can tear yourself down and rebuild into something stronger without the pressure to keep up appearances. And here's the real advantage. While everyone else is busy being seen, they're also being studied. People are watching their every move, learning their patterns, predicting their next step. But you're a ghost. You're moving in silence, unpredictable, unseen, until you're ready to strike. That's what makes isolation a weapon. It keeps your evolution hidden until the moment you choose to reveal it. Isolation also exposes the truth about your habits. When there's no one around to motivate you, to remind you, to push you, you quickly find out if you've built discipline or if you've been relying on external pressure all along. This is uncomfortable, but it's necessary. Because once you learn to drive yourself without needing someone else's energy, you become unstoppable. You'll work when others rest. You'll prepare when others procrastinate. And when the moment comes to step into the light, you'll be so far ahead, they won't understand how you got there. One of the biggest mistakes people make in isolation is thinking they have to wait until it's over to start living. They sit still, putting their goals on pause, waiting for the right moment or for things to go back to normal. But isolation is the moment. This is when you plant seeds. This is when you build foundations. This is when you prepare for the battles and opportunities you can't even see yet. By the time others realize what's happening, you'll already be ready. Think about a blade being sharpened. The sharpening doesn't happen in the middle of a fight. It happens in the quiet before the fight. That's what isolation is for, sharpening yourself. So when life demands your best, you can deliver it without hesitation. The unprepared panic when the moment comes. The prepared execute. And preparation is almost always done in private. There's also something deeply liberating about knowing you've built yourself without constant feedback. It means when you finally step out, the confidence you carry isn't fragile. It wasn't handed to you by the approval of others. It was earned through the hours you put in when no one was watching. People can doubt you, criticize you, even walk away from you, and you'll keep moving because you've already learned to operate without them. This doesn't mean isolation is always easy. There will be days it feels heavy. There will be moments you wonder if anyone notices the work you're putting in. But that's the test of whether you're building for applause or building for impact. Applause fades. Impact lasts. The work you do in isolation will speak for you long after the clapping stops. So the next time you find yourself cut off, left out, or walking alone, remember, you can either see it as a cage or as a weapon. You can either wait for someone to open the door, or you can use the time to sharpen yourself so much that when the door opens, you don't just step out, you step out ready to change the game. And when that moment comes, it won't matter who doubted you, who left you, or who didn't believe in you. Because while they were busy watching each other, you were busy becoming someone they could never break. That's the power of isolation. If you use it right, it becomes the most dangerous weapon you'll ever carry. Some people talk about strength as if it's a trait you're either born with or you're not. They look at those who endure storms and say, they're just built differently. But that's a lie people tell themselves to avoid facing the truth. Being unbreakable is not something you inherit. It's something you choose over and over again. Every day, in the smallest moments, in the hardest trials, you're given the chance to decide whether you'll stand or fold. And that decision is what shapes you, not fate, not luck, not some secret gift you were born with. Being unbreakable doesn't mean life hasn't hit you. In fact, it's the opposite. It means life has hit you hard. And instead of letting that be the end of your story, you used it as the start of a new one. It means you faced situations that could have broken you. And in those moments, you didn't wait for someone else to save you. You chose to keep moving forward, even when the path wasn't clear, even when you felt like you had nothing left. There's a dangerous misconception that strength appears when it's needed, like a reflex. But strength doesn't magically show up. It's built in the moments when no one's watching, when you're quietly fighting battles no one knows about. It's built every time you choose discipline over comfort, every time you choose to get back up instead of staying down, every time you decide you will not be defined by what happened to you. The choice to be unbreakable often starts small. It's deciding to get out of bed on the day you feel like hiding. It's making the call you've been avoiding. It's showing up for yourself when no one else shows up for you. Those small decisions are like drops of water filling a reservoir. On their own, they might not look like much, but over time, they build a supply of strength you can draw from when the big storms hit. And make no mistake, the storms will come. Life doesn't care how good your intentions are or how hard you've worked. There will be moments that test you to your core. Loss, betrayal, failure, unexpected setbacks that feel like they've knocked the wind out of you. In those moments, you'll be tempted to think, I can't do this. I'm not built for this. But here's the thing, the decision to be unbreakable isn't made in the moments you feel strong. It's made in the moments you feel weak and choose to act strong anyway. Being unbreakable also means redefining what breaking even means. People think it's about never bending, never struggling, never showing emotion. But the truth is, the strongest people bend all the time. They feel the weight, they stumble, they cry, they even doubt themselves. But they don't stay down, they don't let the struggle turn into surrender. They adapt, they shift, they keep going. That's real unbreakable strength, not rigidness, but resilience. Choosing to be unbreakable also means taking full ownership of your life. It means refusing to live in the role of the victim, even when you've been wronged. Because the moment you decide you're powerless, you've already given away your ability to change anything. Owning your life doesn't mean blaming yourself for everything that happens. It means accepting that you're responsible for how you respond. And your response is where your power lives. The choice to be unbreakable is uncomfortable because it requires you to face reality without excuses. You can't blame the lack of support. You can't blame the unfairness of the world. You can't wait for the perfect conditions. You have to decide that you will stand no matter what. That's a heavy responsibility, but it's also freeing, because once you realize your strength isn't in anyone else's hands, you stop waiting for them to give it to you. And here's something people forget. Being unbreakable doesn't mean you win every fight. It doesn't mean you never fail. It means you don't stay defeated. You can lose and still be unbreakable, because losing is just a moment. Breaking is giving up on yourself entirely. If you can get back up even with nothing but grit in your hands, you're still in the fight. And as long as you're in the fight, you're not broken. The choice to be unbreakable will isolate you sometimes. Not everyone is willing to make it. Many people are more comfortable in the safety of excuses, in the comfort of I tried, but it was too hard. You choosing to keep going will make some people uncomfortable because it challenges their own decision to stop. That's okay. You're not here to live according to their limits. You're here to live according to your potential. And the beautiful thing about choosing to be unbreakable is that it compounds over time. Every challenge you face and overcome becomes proof that you can handle the next one. Every obstacle you turn into an opportunity makes the next obstacle feel less intimidating. You start carrying yourself differently. not with arrogance, but with a quiet confidence that says, I've been through worse, and I'm still here. If you are in a season right now where life feels heavy, where you're tempted to let it break you, understand this: no one else can make this choice for you. They can encourage you, they can cheer for you, but at the end of the day, it's you who has to decide. You have to decide that you are worth the fight. You have to decide that no matter how many times life knocks you down, you will not stay down. Being unbreakable isn't about what happens to you, it's about what you decide to do next. And the power in that decision is yours, always. When it's all said and done, life will not measure you by the number of hands that clapped for you or the amount of people who stood beside you when things were easy. It will measure you by the days you stood alone and still refused to break, by the nights you fought battles no one knew about and still woke up the next morning, ready to fight again. You are not fragile because you've been alone. You are strong because you survived being alone. And that strength isn't something that can be handed to you, bought for you, or inherited. It's forged in the fire of solitude, in the moments you choose to rise when everything tells you to stay down. Being unbreakable doesn't mean life won't hit you. It means life can hit you over and over, and you'll still get back up with your head high. It means you stop waiting for someone to save you and realize you were built to save yourself. That is your power. That is your weapon. That is your freedom. So the next time you feel the sting of isolation, don't see it as punishment. See it as your training ground. You are not less because you stand alone. You are more because you can. And when you master the art of walking alone, with your head up and your heart steady, you'll understand something the world's loudest voices will never grasp. You don't need a crowd to validate you when you already know your worth. Remember this: the most dangerous person in the world is the one who's alone, unshaken, and unbreakable. That can be you. It's not a gift. It's not luck, it's a decision. And today, you get to decide. Ask ChatGPT,